Greetings, YouTube. Today I'd like to talk about the corporate narrative. Now, I've worked in manufacturing for more than 4 decades, okay? And in that time, I've come to realize that there is a significant difference between the real world and the corporate narrative. And it's been my experience that here is reality and here is the corporate narrative. Ooby-dooby-dooby-dooby, up and down, whatever the hell it needs to be in that particular moment in time. And these two things don't ever meet. And when given a choice between reality and the corporate narrative, the members of the corporation, the managers and such, will always choose this. The problem is I live here, right here. That's where I live. And I am not affected by their faith in their corporate narrative because I can't use their faith to produce parts. I can't use their faith to make sure things get delivered or supplies get distributed or machines get maintained or repaired or that I make sure people are safe. None of that is going to help me in my day-to-day life. I'm a lead. I'm a first aider. I'm on the safety committee. I make sure that people are as safe as possible in my territory, and I am constantly complaining about the fact that they are not. Just the other day, I had to break down a pallet that was just put together by goddamn chimps, and they put a 44-pound box at the top of the thing, which was over my head. And in the process of taking it off the top of the pallet, because I had no options at that point, I hit myself in the face with it. Thankfully, all I did was give myself a swollen lip. Um, but it was annoying because it was a violation of our safety standards. You can't have anything up over this shoulder height that weighs more than 10 pounds. And it was even a violation of our lift capacity. We're not supposed to have anything that weighs more than 35 pounds in the building. Um, but we do. I mean, as far as things that we interact with, obviously we have stuff you have to pick up with fork trucks and things like that. But just like objects that we're supposed to pick up and move around, it's not supposed to weigh more than 35 pounds. And the thing in question was a box of plastic bags. So essentially, it was a block of plastic. The reason it was so heavy. It doesn't look big. It's just super dense thing, but I still have to move it, and we still need them desperately. So we have to have them on the floor. Um, but that kind of thing happens all the time. And I question it because the person that did that screwed up. But there's a person over them that is supposed to be their lead. And then above that's management. So why did management create a situation where that was allowed? Oh, because it gets things to the floor faster. That's the corporate narrative. It gets things to the floor faster. But it didn't do that safely. Now, you could have done it safely. In fact, the effort to do it safely would have been minor. Literally, it would have been 30 additional seconds to make it safe. But somebody thought that that 30 additional seconds wasn't time well spent. They thought that they would do it their way, and they put someone else's health at risk. Thankfully, it wasn't a big deal. And I wasn't about to ask anybody else in my cell to do it because I'm the lead. That's my job. I'm not going to ask somebody to do something I think is unsafe. If it's truly unsafe, I won't touch it. But if it's something I think it's on the edge, I'll do it. That's my job. That's the responsibility I've taken. And I just think that the corporate narrative too often is about avoiding that responsibility. Because as you go up in a hierarchy, in my view, each level of height is an increased degree of responsibility. I'm in charge of 6, 7 people. My boss is in charge of 40. Well, more like 35, I think. Okay? To me, that's an increased degree of responsibility. But you're responsible for every single detail that happens in that area. And above that person, now you're in charge of, you know, 100, 200 people. And again, in my opinion, that's an increased degree of responsibility. Whereas I've seen too many times managers see it as an increased degree of authority, but not responsibility. That they've severed those two things. That they are, you know, distributing that, delegating responsibility. I don't. You can't delegate responsibility. You can put certain things under certain people's control, but you're still ultimately responsible for it. If that guy on the line ships something out the door that's bad, ultimately, in my opinion, that should lead all the way back up to the top because that person did that for a failure in the structure you have created. Now, it could be honestly, it could be someone trying to ship something bad because they're an idiot. All right, that thing's happen. But if it's a systemic issue, it's a systemic issue because there's been a failure in the system. Why is there a failure in the system? Why have you not created a structure that makes sure that every single person is trained exactly the same way? Because I can tell you they aren't. And I can tell you that the degree of rules application will vary from shift to shift, from area to area, and unfortunately, because favoritism is a thing, from person to person. Some people can get away with something, and some people can't. Now, unfortunately, the person that's getting away with something could in fact be doing their job wrong, and the person that's not going to get away with it is trying to do it right, but they fail. There's a difference there. Somebody that doesn't care, but because they're under the protective, aura of their supervisor, is more of a problem to me than the guy that's trying to do it right and failing. Because that person, I can work with that person. Just the other day, I was trying to explain something to somebody that it was designed very poorly. The machine, the object was designed very poorly. And so I could not actually show this person what I was looking at the same time because you had to put yourself into a physical position that both of us could not see this thing. So what did I do? Took the camera out, I took a picture of it, put it down in front of that person, blew it up, and I said, this is what you're looking at. That right there. That's the thing that you need to be playing with, that number. And suddenly they got it. Suddenly, oh, that makes sense. But no one had ever explained it to them. But they took a copy of that. So now they have a copy of it. So that's a person that didn't do the right thing, but tried, as opposed to the person that doesn't care. Big difference. And that corporate narrative structure is pervasive. And it leads them to live in this world that has no bearing to reality. Remember that reality I live in? They don't live there. They don't know so much that they don't even know what they don't know. They're implementing a new system of accountability. They want to make sure everything's traced properly for every physical object in the building as far as its conclusion in a process. So if something goes wrong anywhere inside of a process, they'll be able to trace all the way back and figure out, okay, that's the batch of this that went bad, or that's the batch of this that went bad. I can understand that. And they're showing this, and they're talking about it. And after I thought about it for a bit, and I said, okay, I called the person over and I said, hey, okay, what about those, and those? So what do you mean? So those three things have not been included in your process. You didn't talk about them. Are you even aware that those three things do not use the same labeling structure? They don't have the same barcode structure. They are completely different. And they looked at me like, no, I wasn't. Well, there you go. And I showed the person what was going on. And now they have to take that back to the corporate structure and say, hey, by the way, that system that you implemented didn't take into account these three things right here that have been in your building for decades. Why did you not know they exist? Obviously, they're not going to say that to their boss, but that's the reality. They don't even know what they don't know. Whereas the folks like me that live out here, sorry, keep that metaphor straight, live out here in reality, we do. I know I don't have the big picture. I understand that. The big picture isn't my problem, though. What I do have to take care of, I do the best I can to have command of the situation and know what's going on. And that philosophy does not seem to be one that translates well into the corporate structure. It seems the further they go up, the less connection to reality they have. And that's bad, in my opinion. So I know I've waxed about this, but it's a topic that's been bugging me for years. So let's talk about the corporate narrative. What's your experience with it? Have you found yourself part of it? And have you found yourself willing to accept it and just drink deep of the flavor aid and just go with the roll with the whole situation and enjoy your lucrative paycheck? Or have you fucked the system and found yourself on the outside? Because I can guarantee you right now that if you push against that corporate narrative hard enough, the narrative isn't going to change. You're just going to find yourself on the outside of it. So let's talk about all the folks out there that have to deal with folks that have no grasp of reality, but they are still our bosses.